Hi guys, welcome back to exmolex. Today I just want to talk a little bit about the growth, or not, of the Mormon Church. As you know, if you've been around a while, I left the Mormon Church 5.5 years ago with my husband and kids. And since then, I've been making videos about my experiences in the Mormon Church, the things I went through while I was there, the things that I learned once I started doubting it, and the things I've learned after leaving it. I feel like I personally didn't have enough proper informed consent for the covenants I made in the temple, or even just when I got baptized as an 8-year-old. And I feel pretty strongly about educating the general public about Mormonism so that more people have the opportunity to make informed choices. Now, I came across this thread on Reddit that talks about how the church seems to be hemorrhaging members, and I want to share it with you guys. Now, for me personally, most of my family are members of the Mormon Church, and we've been that way for a long time. I'm personally a 7th generation Mormon, and I've actually done deep dives into my family tree trying to find anybody who was a direct ancestor of mine that wasn't a member of the church during that time period, and it seems that pretty much everybody was. I won't lie to you, I've been looking around and searching because I wanted to be able to tell a story about somebody decades ago that maybe was like the black sheep of the family that didn't believe, but I haven't been able to find anybody yet. If I ever do, I'll let you know. But in the time that I have stepped away from the church, there are several family members of mine who have stepped away also. Very proud of all of us. Now, the church says that it is still growing, that the church is flourishing. We're building all these new temples because we have so many members and so many people joining, so we need more temples to accommodate people. And when I was growing up in the church, this was the rhetoric that we heard a lot, that the church is just growing exponentially and it's going to grow to fill all corners of the earth. They talked a lot about the prophecy of the stone cut out of the mountain without hands and how everybody at some point was going to be a Mormon. But to be honest, I heard less and less of that talked about as I got older, and by the time I was in my 20s, nobody really talked about it anymore. That's just my personal experience from like Sunday school. I don't know how everybody else's Sunday school was or what they were hearing, but for me, it was really heavily emphasized when I was a child and a teenager, and then I just didn't really hear much about it anymore. And since leaving the church, I have wondered like how much of that is because the church is just not seeing the growth that it used to see. Now, the church's official number of how many members it has on the website is 17,225,394 Mormons. So their official number that they're quoting is over 17 million Mormons. Now, mind you, that is still a very tiny, minuscule number in comparison to the amount of people that are in the world, but 17 million, nothing to shake a stick at. Now I want to read you this thread that I found on Reddit. Keep in mind, it's not like verified or official, but it is interesting. The church is hemorrhaging members, insight from an insider. I had an interesting conversation with an insider this week. To protect his identity, I will be vague. He has had prominent callings in the church and has done some level of professional work with the Quorum of the 15. And if you don't know, that's the 15 highest leadership positions in the church. During our conversation on why I left the church, he said the church is collapsing and hemorrhaging members. He said that active attendance is around 3.5 million, nowhere close to the reported number of 17 million members. I said I had figured it to be around 4.5 million, and he confirmed that it was significantly less, and the Quorum of the 15 knows it. 3.5 million. That is so few compared to the reported number. 3.5 million that are actively attending. That's like, I mean, probably between Utah and Idaho, that's probably how many Mormons there are in both states. That's just a guesstimate. But I'm just saying, like, that is such a low number compared to the worldwide. We have 17 million members. Several of the top leaders still feed the narrative of growth, namely Bednar, Cook, and the asshat 70, Kevin Pearson, who he said is a really dangerous man with his rhetoric. He also gave a figure for the number of physically in, mentally outs attending. Unfortunately, I can't remember if it was 10% or 30%. Regardless, it is a significant number. From his report, about 50% of the members between 35 to 55 have left the church in the past 20 years. He is very concerned about the culture of the church that leads good people to justify doing bad or immoral things, such as lie about finances in relation to the EPA scandal. He equated the issues surrounding EPA to the culture in corporations that have had major scandals. Everyone is complacent and sees it as normal. He compared church culture to that of Germany, where normal people believed harmful rhetoric and went along with bad things. 50% of Mormons between 35 to 55 left the church in the past 20 years. Leave a comment if you are in that demographic. I'm just under that. I'm 30 years old and I left the church when I was 25. And I think that there are a lot of people in that demographic that have left too. As a matter of fact, if you have left the church, doesn't matter when, comment when you left and how old you were. I'm just curious. Like I said, this is not like some official statement or anything. This is just word of mouth, so there's no way to say that this is true or not, but to me, it sounds legit. Another person commented on this thread and said, my uncle works for the church and some wards have lost 85% of their members. This is actually happening in my lifetime. I'm thrilled, and I got some of my old friends back. Me too. I also saw another thread that had something similar. It says, is it common for people to have 2+ callings now? Growing up, I feel like people could only hold one calling at a time. I could be wrong. But now my family that are in the church seem to have several callings. My dad is elders quorum president, Sunday school teacher, and seminary teacher. My mom is in nursery, activity days, and Relief Society presidency. And as far as I'm aware, many of my siblings that are still in have at least 2 callings each. Is church attendance really that low that everyone has to be doing so much? Do they not think people have other things to do? And somebody commented, because they're running out of people who can/will donate their time. I was in a decent sized upper middle class ward in the PNW 4 years ago, and it was a struggle to fill callings. I'm out, but the ward is even smaller now. One time I went to the Portland Temple and there were literally 5 people in the session on a Saturday. Okay, so I'm obviously very intrigued by this. Like I said, I think everybody should be well informed and educated about the Mormon Church before they make the covenants in the temple and before they get baptized and all of that jazz. Once I became fully informed about the church, I left. And I think that that is the way it is for a lot of members. There are some who really cling to those beliefs, and like, good for you. If you know the whole picture and you want to stay anyway, that's your prerogative. But a lot of us who find out everything, we're like, see ya. I think that 3.5 million sounds about accurate for the number of active members. The reality is that most people who get baptized stop attending within a year. And it's not like most of those people will ever get their records removed. They won't go to the trouble. They just won't attend church anymore. So the church will still count them as a member, even if they haven't gone in 20 years. So I think that if the church is actually still seeing growth, it's probably mostly people who get baptized and stop attending, and then members of the church having children, and they become members that are added to that record. And with that in mind, I have talked about this before, but just as a little reminder, I think it is a really great thing that if you don't believe the church is true and you don't agree with the stuff that they're doing, you should get your records removed. And I know not everybody has that privilege because of family member ties and things like that, but if you can, I think you should. Don't let them count you as one of the members. Get your names removed, yank yourself out of there, don't be associated with it in any way, and maybe at some point we'll actually be able to see the decline. Also, along this same topic, a comment and question that I get pretty often in my comment section is from somebody who has recently left the church and their family members are still in, and they want their family to know the truth so that they'll leave. And they'll ask, like, how do I convince my family members? What should I say to them to get them to listen and do their own research? And I think that I've probably touched on this before, but the reality is that you can't pull somebody out of the church. They have to want to go looking for themselves. So if you can even like get a conversation going with them, I think the most important thing that you can say to somebody is just to ask them, if the church wasn't true, would you want to know that? And at that point, if they want to know, they can go looking for it. You don't have to do the hard work for them. And in fact, if you are trying actively to pull them away from the church, they will probably be pulling in the opposite direction. I think communication is really important. And if you are able to talk to your family members about different issues that you've seen with the church, that's great. But you should let them find their way out on their own so as not to cause, issues and contention within your relationship. That's just my opinion. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Again, comment when you left the church, like what year and how old you were at the time. I'm just very curious to see. I left the church in 2018 when I was 25. How about you? Very obviously, this has a lot to do with the information age and everybody having the internet available to them at any time. The church has tried to disguise and hide and sweep a lot of things under the rugs for a very long time, but in the age of the internet, that's pretty much impossible to do. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to leave your comment about when you left. Huge thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for being here. Special thank you to Doug Davis for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. If you would like to support the channel and the work that I do here, there are links to do so in the description below. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next time. Bye!